Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live event. We are so excited. I am going to give some people some time to hop on. I am live here with, I'm going to introduce Stephanie Pinto, and she is from Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Children. And I'll give her a quick bio while we wait for everybody to hop on. Okay, so hello to everyone that's watching. Leave us a comment if you can see us. Let us know that you're here with us live. We are streaming across YouTube on our Guide and Grow TV. We're here on our Facebook event and in our Montessori at Home 0 to 3 years Facebook group. So if you can see this live or you'd like to say hello, just give us a comment. Let us know where you're listening from, where you're watching from. If anybody has any issues streaming it live, don't worry. We're recording this amazing event so that everybody can have access to it. So if you are going to replay it later on, just hashtag replay so that we know where you're watching from and we can keep the thread going. So this live event will be available on our Montessori at Home Facebook group, on our YouTube channel, Guide and Grow TV, and also on Guide and Grow on Facebook. So I am going to bring Stephanie on. So here we are. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
We are so excited to have you join us. I am going to read a quick bio and introduce to everybody who you are and where you're from. So Stephanie is an emotionally intelligent coach who specializes in helping parents create an emotionally intelligent family culture at home. She is a certified emotionally intelligent specialist and is trained in pediatric anxiety therapy and also practiced as a speech pathologist for 10 years. So I'm so excited. Oh, hello, someone's watching from Dallas, Texas. Welcome. We're streaming live from Australia, in Sydney, Australia. So we're excited to have everyone join us from around the world. Stephanie, welcome. What are we going to be talking about today?
A huge topic. Thank you so much for having me on and letting me, I'm sure I'm going to waffle on about the stuff that I love, but today it's just really focused on how we can tame our triggers that we often have with our kids. Sometimes, their behavior and things that go on around us can make us feel really triggered, really frustrated and stressed. So we're going to be talking about that and how we can kind of bring that calm back to our home.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so excited to be talking about this topic because it is something that we sometimes don't really know how to navigate, and we don't really realize why we ended up just yelling or shouting. And then we reflect and we think, oh my gosh, what did I do? Why did I do that? How can I do things better and differently? So I'm really excited to dive into this topic. And I guess we should really start off with, what is it? Like, what is feeling triggered? What does it look like? Can you tell us about, let's understand a little bit more about what triggers are.
Ooh, that's a good place to start because we don't often as a parent say, I'm feeling very triggered. We just feel like, we don't often kind of name what we're feeling. But I want to actually give you guys a little bit of an understanding of, what feeling triggered looks like. And obviously later we'll talk about, the impacts of it and how we can really start to overcome it. But let me tell you a story, honestly, from my home. This is probably, I want to say 2 years ago now, but it's etched in my memory. And I wonder if you guys watching along can kind of resonate with this sense and this feeling of what happened to me at the end of a day when, I had so much going on and I lost it with my kids, right? So my kids now are 7 and 4. So back then they probably would have been, they must have been like 2 and 5 or 2.5. I can't remember, but it was the end of a long day. So, I had what I call lots of setting conditions, like tick, 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 busy day. I was trying to get dinner ready. I was cooking it and I wasn't that organized and lots of stuff was going on. And I thought, you know what, I'll just chuck both of the kids in the shower in our ensuite. I'll put them in, they can, instead of a bath, because that takes so much longer. And so I put them in the shower and went back to cooking. And then a couple of minutes later, I thought I'll go in and check on them and see, if they're kind of clean or if they're just playing. So I went in, and when I opened like the ensuite door and had a peek in, I could see my son and my daughter like standing in there with the shower on. And on my daughter's arm and like down from her shoulder down to her elbow, it was all this really dark, wet stuff. And I was like, what is that? Like, it's dark brown, you know? And it was all on the ensuite floor, like swirling down into the drain.
Oh,
And
no.
it took me a split second, because this is how fast we can be triggered, right? It does not take long. It's the thing we say when we say, oh my God, I went from 0 to 100. And I just flipped my lid and I had like, oh my God, I didn't even realize it happened. So I noticed this stuff. I was like, what is that? And, you know, split second later, I looked over at my son and he was holding my husband's razor in his hand. And he was like he'd been caught. And I was like, huh? And then split second later, I realized what he had done, which is like cut my daughter's hair. Everyone thinks it's true when I tell this story, but it wasn't. But her hair is blondish, like light brown blondish. But you know, when hair goes wet, it goes dark.
Yeah.
And so it was all falling off down her arm, onto the ensuite floor, down the drain. And like, I'm not particularly attached to hair or anything. I don't think we had her first haircut at this point in life. So I saw the razor. I put 2 and 2 together really quickly.
No.
And this is how fast we are triggered. I yanked it out of his hand and I go, Arthur, how dare you? You never use that. What are you doing? I can't believe it. Like, I just lost it. And I just shouted at him. And it feels like a minute later, it was probably 10 seconds, I kind of ran out of gas and I caught myself. This is what happens when we're triggered. We kind of come back to earth. And I looked like I just kind of saw him properly, and he was cowering in the corner of the shower, like tears coming down his face.
Oh, no.
I didn't know what he was doing. It was an honest mistake. He goes, I was brushing her hair. And I was like,
oh no.
But, you know, the damage was done. Like, I shouted at him. I put the fear of God in him. Like, both of them were startled. And I had to do the repair work. I'm really sorry, guys. This is not a brush. We don't use it. I put it up high, So being triggered is that sense of like the explosion. We see something happen around us. Usually it is our child and their behavior. Something they've done, spilt something or broken something or said something, or hurt one another. And we just explode. We don't come from a place of calm and understanding and reasoning. We kind of miss all that stuff. And we just let loose. Like, that's why we have those sayings. I just saw red. I flipped my switch. It makes us do things that we otherwise wouldn't say or do. I would never shout and treat my kids like that. But in the moment, we can lose that control, right? And so it comes back to like the way I explain it to parents, to give some understanding to what's happening and then to be able to overcome it is, we need to know that in our brain, something huge is going on. And it's like a really primitive kind of caveman function in our brain, right? It's called being emotionally hijacked. And in a nutshell, it's when something happens in our surroundings and it triggers this part in our brain, the really deep emotional part called the amygdala, it's like a bit of a checkpoint. Like, if something happens, we have to go past, the information has to go past this emotional amygdala part of the brain. And if we're calm and relaxed and regulated, then we can deal with it appropriately. That information can hit our neocortex, the part of our brain that makes good decisions, thinks rationally, is logical and empathetic and all of that. But when we are in this state of, we've had a busy day and things have gone wrong and work, that happened, and then my kids, we are much more likely to see something happen. And then our amygdala is like, ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, threat, like puts us in that fight, flight, stress response. Like, you need to react. And it happens
absolutely.
like that. And so we lose access to the rational, logical part of our brain where we make good decisions and we act calmly. It literally goes offline. And you guys, I'm sure, will have experienced this, where you do say something you regret, you otherwise wouldn't say, and it's because your emotions take over. So
absolutely. In a nutshell, that was a perfect example of being triggered, that's for sure. Or like the 100 name calling, like nonstop, like mummy, 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 or like the name calling, and all of these moments. I guess that's we've got to, like, the first thing I guess is recognizing them, right?
Yeah.
So like you were able to recognize not long after that happened that that's what was happening. But I think that's the hardest thing for us, like actually realizing what's happening and then, okay, understanding it and then being like, okay, how do I now fix that? Or how do I then respond? My question is, do you think some of these triggers may stem from like our childhood, or maybe the way we were raised, or maybe some of the way we respond to our children might be something that we've subconsciously maybe learned or picked up on the way, or or do you think it's something that is just natural and just happens?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think this comes into play when parents are really serious about taking a look at this, the way they're connecting and communicating with their kids and thinking, I don't want to be this shouty, snappy parent anymore. I don't like reaching that point. I wish there's another way. I don't want to reach the point of having to raise my voice or snap. It doesn't feel nice. Like, there's the whole parent mum or dad guilt that goes with it. I talk a lot to parents about that mum guilt and dad guilt and stuff. But you are right. You hit the nail on the head, Sylvia, because our the way we show up now as parents and the habits and the patterns of behavior that we have are just that. They are habits, right? We tend to act one way. Very rarely will we actually take a whole new path and do something completely different. We can do it, but we are really kind of chained in a way by our subconscious. It runs the show. It's very effective in doing that. It's why I can make a coffee, listen to a podcast, and tidy up as I go, because my brain allows me to kind of work on autopilot most of the time.
Yeah, right.
The thing is, like, all of that stuff has been collected over the years and programmed in. Again, our brain is very primitive. It's very helpful. It's there to protect us. However, we have these habits that have come from many, many years of either receiving and responding to information that way. Potentially that was how our parents raised us. That was what we saw a lot at home, or that was our normal. Like growing up, particularly in the 0 to 7 year age gap group, is where kids are absorbing information through experiences. They're very experiential learners. So that happened to us, right? Our childhood, the way our parents connected with us or didn't, the way they communicated with us or didn't, the way they got us to cooperate, like through encouragement or punishment or threat or whatever that was, that became our normal because we just absorbed that without question. We couldn't. We were a child. So the thing is, we have to understand that this stuff has honestly conditioned us. That's simply the way it has been. That's how kids learn language. That's how they learn to walk and things, by watching their models, parents and other people around them. So we've got to be aware of, what our programming or our conditioning has been, and decide, well, do I want to make a change? Do I want to make a difference? And do I want to show up differently? And I talk to some parents about being a cycle breaker, particularly those ones who have had a very loud, kind of shouty, triggered childhood, and that was their normal. And parents will say to me, like, I can hear my mum coming out of my mouth, or that's what she used to do. She used to say, you know what, if you're not going to tidy your room, all your toys are going in the bin. Like, that was normal.
So, or being chased around the house with a wooden spoon. Mum, if you're watching, I'm really sorry.
The stories I've heard, to be honest, like of the way that parents dealt with a child who misbehaved or had a challenging or disruptive behavior, is like, there's just so many different cultures in homes and in families as well. So we need to be aware of that and have a deep look at what was normal for me. What is my programming? Is that serving me and my kids? Or could I maybe do some work and put the intention in there to find out how to make a change and be a different way?
Yeah, definitely. I really resonate with what you're saying. And I think it takes us consciously to make those decisions and to make those changes, or kind of even recognize that, hey, we can actually do something a different way. And it's, there could be a better way, and it doesn't have to be the way we were raised or what we've seen. But if you're feeling like, I just don't want to do this way, or if you feel like, yeah, I want to learn a different way or a better way, I think that's something that just recognizing that is amazing in itself, because, a lot of the time we don't think that way, or many people don't. Andrea said, I had the wooden spoon too. Don't worry, she never actually used it. I think it was more of a threat. But let's talk about that, Stephanie, right? Let's talk about threats. So let's talk about, like, why should we do things differently, right? Like we were we were threatened. We were, if you don't come here in a minute, 1, 2, 3, countdown and all that. Like, why, what does it mean for us? Like, what's the impact on kids? I turned out all right.
I know.
But let's dive into that.
Yeah, and the amount of parents, you are so right, that have said, this happened, that happened, and I was raised this way, but I turned out all right. And we have to have a conversation then about, well, what are some of the things that you are doing now with your children that you don't feel great about, or that you wish you didn't do? So even though we all turn out relatively okay, let's talk about the impact on our child if we are consistently raising our voice, and that's the only way we can get them to cooperate or to do something or to listen. The impacts on the child, on us as the parent, but also our connection and our relationship, right? Because I think we often kind of miss that there are actually a lot of implications that come from parents who have that consistent, snappy, shouty, stressed, like kind of vibe in their home. So I wonder whether anyone watching would resonate with the feeling of, my kids just don't listen to me anymore. That's why I have to shout. Or my kids are tuning me out, So some of these impacts on when we consistently raise our voice is that our kids do start to learn, well, that's just how mum is, or that's just dad, empty threats or things like that. They do start to tune us out. It fractures our relationship and our connection with them. And this has a huge impact, because now if your child isn't already kind of tuning you out, or just not listening, and you need to raise your voice again and again, think about sometimes when we have to up the ante, and then we have to shout louder, or then shouting isn't working, so we're going to have to use a punishment, remove something they love. That's it. No more iPad for the rest of the week. Or, that party on Saturday, well, you're not going. So we get in this power struggle. And what that does to our child, when our intentions are usually good, we want them to do something, to do their homework, or to get in the car, or to hurry up. Our intentions are good, but what that does when we shout or we raise our voice at our child is it actually puts their nervous system in a bit of a low-level stress response. Right? It's not nice being shouted at. We get that. So what that does is, instead of us connecting with them and getting their cooperation and having them want to do what we're asking, it actually pushes them away. Like, they can shut down. Some kids actually do shut down, in the sense that they will ignore, or they will withdraw, they will go quiet, they might just stay glued to the TV, or they go the other way, they go outward, and they will blow up, or they'll dig their heels in and they'll say, well, I'm not going, or I don't want to do my homework. We have all these big reactions, and it's our child's nervous system responding to the fact that they've been put in a bit of a fight, flight, stress response. So it never works to, like, I'm saying this with a big hand up, saying, I still shout at my kids here and there, I'm human. So I don't want to come from a, like,
it's important. It's important to realize that we still do these things, and it's normal, and we are trying to change, and making those changes and just trying to do those things is what matters the most. And I wanted to add a point, Stephanie, when you were talking about, their nervous system and how their responses come, especially for younger children. So we had someone on Facebook say, my 2-year-old will do the opposite of what I ask her. She'll look at me in the eye and do it after I ask her nicely to do something else. So, like the expectations sometimes that we have for young children. We're going to talk about that, I know, in a little bit. But with younger children specifically, we might have these expectations like, oh, they should really know what we're asking them to do, or they should be listening and understand what we do. But actually, developmentally, when we are looking at scientifically the brain development, when we're talking about emotional regulation, and if children are upset and they don't want to do something, they're very much in the moment of that emotion, and it's so hard for them to listen or understand what it is that we're asking of them, especially in the way that we ask them. So we're going to definitely talk about in a little bit how to do it in a way that will encourage their cooperation. But yeah, that was a really interesting point with younger children specifically. It's actually something that developmentally they don't have the ability to do. And that's a common misunderstanding.
Yes, actually, I love that you brought that up, and I want to add to it that yes, our expectations 99 times out of 100, when I chat to a parent or work with a parent, we figure out that they really need to adjust or kind of lower their expectations of what their child is able to do. And this happens in any given situation. We need to realize that our child and their mood and their attention and so many other cognitive skills which underpin how they're able to listen to us or cooperate or show empathy or whatever it is. A lot of those cognitive skills are still heavily under construction because we know their brain is so under construction. Right. So I often talk about the fact that our brain or a person's brain is not fully developed till their mid-20s.
Yes.
Which just brings it right. I even remind myself of that for my kids sometimes. It brings that understanding, the compassion, the patience, the tolerance. Because if we're talking about like the person who commented before, a 2-year-old, even an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, have a think about what their brain is able to, what that capacity is. You don't need to know the neuroscience behind, all those developmental. This is the stuff I talk about, but like for the purpose of this, even if you just have the awareness that my child's brain is under construction, my child, that means that he or she is still developing skills like maintaining and shifting attention between tasks or between a task and a person, the understanding of linear time, like how long is 10 minutes before we go to preschool or school, and the understanding or the awareness of the impact of their actions on others. So if I don't get ready, if I do hit my brother, things like that, what does that mean for that other person? It's like empathy, understanding that impact and what other people think and feel. The planning, the organization skills, like all these prefrontal cortex skills that are really, really complex. Morality, knowing what's good, what's bad, why I should do something that's good and why I shouldn't do something that's bad. A lot of these skills are way, way, way under construction. And the thing is that I want to get across as well is even if we see that our child can do a skill, can do something we've asked, they've been able to listen, or they got ready on time, even if they did that yesterday, or they did it last week, or they've done it 100 times before, it doesn't mean that today, in this moment, in this situation, with all these other circumstances and factors going on, it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to get there today, right? There are times that I have a fully developed brain because I'm past my mid-20s. And so I should have, planning, organized, reasoning, calm, logical thinking. And there are still times when I am lazy, or I just can't do it today, or I run out of patience, or I snap at my kids or my husband. I still have these moments, and I'm a fully developed, right? Yeah. So for our kids, can we just know that on one day they could do this, or they'll be able to do the skill, and we'll be so proud of them, and that will be great. But on another day, if they're not doing it, it's because they can't, right? For some reason, this comes back to, I love the work of Ross Green, who says kids do well if they can.
Absolutely.
And there's often a lot of stuff going on under the iceberg, which is affecting your child's ability to listen or to behave in a certain way, meet your expectations, emotions, heaps of stuff.
Yeah, on that iceberg point, and we do have a comment from Amanda Jane on our event now, and she said, "I'd love to talk about how to communicate those things to an 18-month-old who may not comprehend all the instructions."
Mm-hmm.
On the iceberg topic, when we are thinking about young children and all their emotions and things, the reason why we see these behaviors come out, right? The ones that we think are tantrums and misbehaving and all that sort of stuff. This all happens because the child cannot is struggling to communicate. So especially when we're looking at 18-month-olds, they're struggling to communicate their needs. There might be something underlying, like their emotions, their mental feeling, or their physically needs. Some need is not being met, and I feel like sometimes that will then display or come out in these behaviors, and then we think, oh my God, my child is not listening to me. Why are they not listening to me? Whereas we haven't recognized what's going on, or what is it that they're upset about, or because when a child is not kind of cooperating, there's got to be some emotional kind of feeling that's underpinning that. And if we don't connect and empathize with that emotion, nothing else, no other instruction can be heard. No other, you got to do this or let's do that can be understood. So when it comes to, young children at 18 months, when you say, oh, they might not understand my instruction, it's really about connecting and empathizing. Oh, you really didn't want to pack away. You were having so much fun, and then saying it's time to pack away. So really objectively, and then offering them a choice. Would you like to pack away the yellow one or the red one? So really breaking it down and making sure the instructions are really simple, and they have a choice to do that. So I just wanted to answer that question from Amanda. And okay, so Stephanie, it's all well in theory. Like, we've spoken a lot about the theory and what it means, and to be triggered, and and also the impacts that it has on children and the science behind it and all that. Now I want to talk about what everyone's waiting for: in practice. How do we do this? So when we recognize the trigger, right? We recognize it, we understand, okay, yep, I'm going to hold myself, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to, walk away if I have to. What can we do, or what can we implement? What are the tools that you kind of, recommend or advise people that they can use in their toolkit to really tame their triggers and try and stop the shouting?
Okay, this is kind of where the rubber hits the road.
Yes.
We think, right, what can we actually really do in the moment to stop ourselves from getting to that space where we get triggered? So I see it as a bit of a multiple pronged approach.
Yeah.
Is that there are things we can do in the moment to prevent ourselves from reaching that space where we do blow up and flip our lid. But I think a lot of the work actually needs to be done much more, much earlier than that. And we need to start shifting the way that we see our child's behavior, so that we understand why they're acting in the way they are, why they seem to be misbehaving. Are they even actually misbehaving? Are they doing this intentionally? A lot of parents who I speak to say, but he's doing it intentionally. He'll look at me and then he'll do the behavior, and I've asked him not to, and things like that. So it's sometimes I say, look, if we get to that moment when we are about to flip our lid with our child, that's really hard to come back from that and to prevent it from happening, because our brain is already building in that space of, like, we're getting agitated and irritated and frustrated, and that's building, right? I kind of see that as, like, to be honest, a little bit, that's too late. The horse is bolted. Like, you can try things like doing your best to pause when you feel, oh my goodness, I'm about to get triggered.
Yes.
Label that feeling. In emotional intelligence, we say name it to tame it, because research shows if I label the feeling, the actual feeling, not just saying, oh my God, I'm so stressed, or I'm so annoyed, saying I'm actually feeling really triggered. I can see this is really irritating me. When when we name it, it actually brings down some of the intensity of the emotion. Okay. So from a biological point of view, that can help, because what we're doing is getting out of that emotional amygdala, that part of our brain, and we're trying to engage the logical, rational thinking part of our brain, where our language is, by saying, okay, I'm really triggered right now. This is bothering me, and I feel like I'm going to snap, or I feel like I'm going to blow up.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
even that can be helpful if you have the presence of mind and you're really intentional about changing this behavior in yourself. Doing things like, okay, I'm going to put my hand on my heart as a reminder and take 5 deep breaths. I say to parents, sometimes you need to like move away into another room. You know, if your child is safe and they're not actively whacking their brother, because then you need to move in and you need to separate and take care. But
Yeah,
if,
of course.
you know, something's been spilled on the carpet, you know, you've got that time to go, whoa, this is where I would usually blow up. Let me just go, I'm going to flick the kettle on, wait till it boils, and then I'm going to come back and address this. Because then you bring yourself into the presence of mind of, how am I going to respond, not react? What could I say here to resolve the situation and to problem solve it? Because I do not want to just snap and shout, right? So I say, go outside and come back. Send that email you've been meaning to send. Flick the kettle on, unload the dishwasher, whatever. Or if you're at work, you know, something like that. But I often think that well before this, we have to be in a different mindset that sees our child's behavior as not intentional misbehavior and they're just pushing our buttons on purpose, but actually my child's behavior is simply the tip of the iceberg. It's simply the smoke signal, the sign that's saying, ding, 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 something's going on here. We need to connect and we need to work this out and problem solve together. Oh, that's all it is. I know, like for me, that was a huge mindset shift when I thought, oh, behaviors is not bad. Like no behavior, I was just writing about this morning, that no behavior is bad. It's simply a smoke signal for us. It's a little flag going, hey, something's happening here. What it's saying is my child is unable to meet the expectation that's been put on them. There's a problem, and what we call an unsolved problem. Ross Green calls it an unsolved problem. So once we forget suppressing or squashing the behavior and saying, right, go to your room, or you're never playing with the iPad again, or apologize and go and play. Once we leave addressing and squashing the behavior, and we actually come over here and we look at what is the unsolved problem, what's making it so hard for my child to get ready on their own in the morning, what is making it so difficult for them to share and be patient and take turns, or to do their homework, or whatever it is. What is making it difficult for my child to do that? When we address that problem and we work with our child collaboratively to say, hey, buddy, I've noticed this is really hard for you, and you often get frustrated and get upset or whatever. What's going on? What's up? Let's work on this. That's where the gold is.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
we address those problems, and when we work together with our child and like mitigate or remove the things they're finding difficult and help them and support them, then the behavior disappears. Right?
It does. It does.
Like,
And
I
it
get
also,
so excited.
it also gets it's the opportunity that they have to problem solve. So we're actually giving children the opportunity to build their skill set. So the biggest thing that I find is that when we don't allow children those opportunities to build their skill sets on how to regulate or how to cope in certain situations, how are they ever going to know how to do that? So we expect them to be able to do that, but we never give them the support or the guidance on how to actually do that. I can see you getting excited. I want to share a story. So, and this is the thing with parents, like, or support, or if you're living with other people and they can step in at the time when you're feeling that way and they can kind of take over the situation, that can also be really helpful. Someone did mention here that my husband suggests starting my day with a kind of self-talk, like things are going to go wrong today, but in the end, it's going to be okay. And she then said, it might be pessimistic, but it's been working. And no, it's actually accepting the fact that we are not perfect. We are not, we're not this, everything's not going to be all dandy and nice and all that, but it's actually accepting the fact that it's okay if things go wrong. And these are the ways that we're actually going to work through and allow those things, to work through and build that skills. So my 2.5-year-old niece and a newborn niece, my sister was living with me, and we had told her, so this was the scenario. My sister, it was quiet upstairs. So I was downstairs and my niece was upstairs. My sister was putting the newborn to sleep and it was awfully quiet. And she had been told multiple times not to go into her sister's formula because she loved, she just wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to make the bottle and do all that. And my sister spent time sanitizing and all that. Anyway, so she was sent upstairs, to play until I was ready to come up and join her. And then it was this eerie silence, like, the silence where something is happening. So I go upstairs and I see my niece had climbed up on a chair, accessed the formula and the sanitized bottles that were waiting because my sister was going to come out and then make a bottle to put the newborn to sleep. And then she's sitting there. The tin was completely spilt open. It was everywhere. The water in the bottle warmer was all over the floor. And she just looked at me with the bottle and the scoop like frozen. And my sister comes out of the room and I just looked at her face and she was like, and she was about to and I was like, just stop. It's okay. I've got it. Right. Because I could detach myself from what happened, because I know that it wasn't because she was just told not to do it that she did it. It was because she just really wanted to help her sister, right? Or make something. She didn't do it on purpose. So I said to her, you just wanted to make a bottle for your sister. I can see that, right? But the rule is you're not allowed to, play with your sister's food. And so she just looked at me and she could tell that I was feeling a bit disappointed, or maybe I was a bit firm. I wasn't angry. I was just stating what the expectation of the house was. And so I said, when you're ready, you can help me clean up, because there was water everywhere and there was formula everywhere. And she literally then ran off to get a towel and she came back and she was wiping up the water. And I just saw how that situation could have gone the complete opposite way, where somebody's then come in and just lost it. I told you not to, touch the formula. Why are you doing, And so I think it's helpful to have people around that will help to recognize when that's going to happen in you and try and step in if that's available. Sometimes it's not available, to us. So yeah, maybe having those affirmations at the beginning of the day is also something that you can do. Okay, someone here wrote, okay, so we have a comment from Jocelyn. I hope I said your name correctly. If a child is having a meltdown or a tantrum and my chosen method to try and tame my quick reaction is to walk away, would this not tell my child that when she's having big emotions that mummy will just walk away and leave her? This is a really, really good point, and we're definitely going to clarify that. So it is absolutely essential that you connect with your child, you let them know that you're there for them. So when we say walk away, it happens after you say, you're really upset. I can see that you're so frustrated, angry. I'm here for you. I love you. I just need a moment so that I can help you work through this. And if that means sitting by them, if that's your moment, or walking away, or just being in a space next to them, and you tell them that I love you and I just need this space so that I can help myself calm down, you're actually choosing to show and model to your child how you can regulate your emotions so that they can regulate theirs. But it is so important. And I know, Stephanie, you're going to comment on this now, how important it is to connect with them and let them know that that's what's happening. Stephanie, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I love that. I was like nodding.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good question, right? Because I have parents say to me, like, I shouldn't I always stay with my child if they're having a meltdown or they're really upset and something's gone wrong, but yet I'm myself and bubbling up and about like I'm getting triggered, right? Don't I need to stay with them? But staying with them can be stressful because they're crying or they're shouting or, they're having their moment. So such a good question. And as Sylvia said, if we're able to find just that small space in time, pause, like things are not going anywhere, right? We can take a pause and 5 seconds, it might take 5 seconds to say, honey, I get that you're really frustrated. I know you wanted the last cookie. I just need to manage my own emotions. I need to manage my feelings. I'm getting stressed. I'm just going to go get a cup of tea and come right back. Or I'm just going to sit over here next to you. Okay, I'm going to take my deep breaths because I want to be calm to help you as well. And right now I'm not. So whatever you want to say for your child, you will have your own language. You'll have your own culture in the way you say it that feels right to you. But I want to get across to everyone that we can't, it's unrealistic to stay connected as much as we want to, and as much as we want to give that to our child and not let them feel like detached from or isolated, if we're unable to manage our triggers and staying next to a very loud, stressed out child, if we can't yet get to the point where we can just, I want to say like water off a duck's back, not in a cold-hearted way, but
especially if it's physical too, Stephanie. Like I've had moments where it's become very physical and the child is physically, kind of showing that, emotion. So, I think we need to understand and make sure that we are being realistic to our own emotions, but also to that of the child's. So if you can't be, someone commented, is that being authentic to our children? And this is the thing, if you're not authentically connecting and empathizing with them, then it's going to be very hard for them to realize and believe that, hey, mom is there for me and she's calm, or dad or caregiver or anyone, and really connect with in that moment. So it is really about being authentic and making sure that if you do choose to be there in that moment, that you can find those methods of trying to, stay calm or breathe through it. I want to move on to this question here from Silvana. And she said, what happens when you're outside or boiling the kettle to calm down and more things happen to disturb that moment? And you're trying to manage your own emotions and that just accelerates things further. Yeah, good question, Steph.
Oh, man, that is so tough, right? When we are trying ourselves to calm down and we're taking a moment or half a minute or whatever it is to bring ourselves back down to earth, and something else happens. Let's say our child then, throws another toy, or our child hits the other one. Like, this is the time when it is hard for us to, we feel like we want to have our own space and like, just give me a minute to calm down. And I would, in a way, almost challenge parents. This is our paradigms coming out, and these are our beliefs. Like, I need this space to calm down, otherwise I'm not going to be able to be regulated for my child. But I would actually challenge parents and say, in those moments, can you find space where, especially if something else big happens, you can go to them and almost like, I don't want to say join the chaos, but find yourself to bring a sense of, I'm here, I can bring, myself, my own, it's called like therapeutic use of self, when you use your body, proximity, coming in towards them and actually meeting them where they're at and saying, I know this is so stressful. This is so this is really overwhelming, isn't it? Sometimes if they're able to, I would pull them on my lap. I do this with my daughter. She's in the middle of a big meltdown, and I'll offer that, and I'll say, let's come here and let's just kind of sit together on the couch. This is hard, isn't it? And I will sometimes label that and say, yeah, this is overwhelming. There's no perfect solution here that's going to work. So we're going to be like in this together, and I'm going to try and help you to know that, hey, I'm here with you. I'm really stressed and overwhelmed too, but let's come together and try and bring that almost bring that compassion and that empathy, because they're not going to give you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
Yeah, they are. And I think what you said in the fact of joining them in their kind of not in that moment. So sometimes I've had moments where children, especially younger children who are having a really like physical meltdown, and you're trying to use your words, you're trying to acknowledge them, and nothing is working. People are like, well, Sylvia, like they're not listening to me. Like, what can I say? And I say, model what they can do with their body. So stomp your feet. Oh, that's so frustrating. And feel what they're feeling so that you can connect with them, right? Because sometimes we have to show them that we're here there too with them in that emotion, and we can go through it with them. And sometimes them seeing us join into their kind of state will help them to connect with us so that they understand what's going on. So I think making it playful, or showing them the emotion, stomping their feet. So if instead of their, hitting, their head or something, because some children do that if they're really overwhelmed, stomping your feet so that you can give them, that kind of guidance on how to model and how to work through that, or offering them, of course, a hug and a cuddle. Nikki says this is so true. I've done this with my 22-month-old. We sit together, I hug him and I say, just breathe in, or to try and calm. We use things like a calming corner. So we set up a little swing. I've got a swing set up with an emotions chart and things like that. That really helps to help children to understand and regulate their emotions. And if it's not happening in that moment, you can always revisit that. So a lot of the time people are like, oh, but I'm trying to work through all this stuff and it's not, they're not listening, and I say to them, in that moment, you've just got to be. You can't be trying to rationalize and figure out this and do that. And because when the emotions are high and everyone's heightened, you cannot bring, if your child's up here and you're up here, how is one person then going to bring that other person down? It's just not going to happen. So I just wanted to make that comment. Anything else, Stephanie? Any other concluding points that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I guess I want to just add quickly to that. Sometimes I talk about the concept of like surrendering to what is, and surrendering to the moment, and surrendering to the chaos and the emotion, and joining your child in it so that they feel like mom or dad gets me and they're in this with me, and this is tough and they're still here. And so if we need a moment to try and collect ourselves, and that will help us to come with a more calm, regulated presence of mind and energy, then that's great. And if we can't, I'll do it with my kids. Sometimes I just join them in it. We sit together, or I sit near them, and they're letting that emotion out, because we have to remember, emotion is energy in motion, right? They've got to release that. It's cortisol, it's adrenaline, their body's being flooded. So we need to allow that to sort of, like, there's a build, right, and a crest, and then it will gradually dissipate, and we can help diffuse that by joining them, or by trying to allow that emotion to run its course in a way. It's very different from like, okay, you deal with that in your room and come out when you're done. It's not that at all, but we can't rush it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard for us to just be like, okay, I have to ride this out. I have to write it out with my child. I've got to be there for them. Somebody, we have a few listening in from Alaska, and Anastasia was asking the exact same thing that you just mentioned briefly. And she said, I missed the beginning of the session, but I was told, and this breaks my heart, I was told both by our pediatric and counselor that when the child is screaming nonstop and nothing is working, to put them in a room by themselves until they stop. I don't like this approach. Do you suggest a better way? Now, we have definitely given so many other toolkits and better ways to do that. That is absolutely not something that we would suggest. You cannot disconnect from your child. That is telling them, I am not there for you when you are going through emotions, and that is not how we help children build their skill set. But it is not even understanding that the child developmentally needs you there. Like they can't. Stephanie, do you want to comment on that? I'm getting a bit emotional.
I know, I got full body chills because it just is that that visual image of a child being put in their room away from us, which is, it does absolutely nothing to calm their nervous system and calm them down and help them move through the emotion. Like you said, what it says to them is, I don't want to see that emotion. That's bad. I'm not helping you with that. Deal with it on your own. We don't want to see it. Don't bring that out here, sort of thing. So it's teaching a child certain emotions. Maybe it's because the child was angry or disappointed or sad or anxious. Those emotions are bad. Squash them down. We don't want to see them. And this is not just us saying it. This is experts and research over the last 10, 20 years that, mind you, our parents didn't have. Like, all of our parents and even us, we're doing the best we can with the knowledge we have. Our parents didn't have the knowledge and the research into emotions, behavior, neuroscience, co-regulating, all of this stuff. So that is actually the opposite of what will actually help calm a child. And over time, the impacts of that is that the child will learn, when I have these certain emotions, I deal with them on my own. I don't approach or express them to anyone. I squash them down because they're bad. And almost it's like a taboo. Like, there are many, I don't want to generalize it with a paintbrush, but like many men nowadays, and I speak to men and they say, yeah, I like, being angry is okay, but not being sad, not being disappointed, not being hurt. That was not okay. That's what we're teaching our kids. So.
Yeah, it is really, and this is the thing, if we don't do it now, so in the early days, and I say this all the time, it is so important to build our children's emotional intelligence and ability to co-regulate, so help them to understand emotions, what they look like, where they're coming from, and all that. Because if we don't do that now, later on in life, they are going to negate their emotions. They're not going to know how to deal with it. They're going to be looking to other ways to escape the emotion. And I guess this all comes back to like us being triggered by this behavior, understanding that, knowing then how to stop our reactions and how to better, so that we can build these skills for our children. And I am so grateful to have you, Stephanie, with us. It was just an eye-opening, extremely informative, helpful for so many parents to understand, all of this. And I'm sure we'll have you back again if you'd like to do another session. Tell us if you have something special for our listeners and everyone that's tuned in. Again, I want to tell people, if you are watching the replay, #replay, let us know where you're listening from so that we can keep the conversation going. Over to you, Stephanie. What have you got?
Yes, I do. I wanted to put together a resource that helped parents in their own home go through some of the ways in which they could understand their triggers, overcome them, to stop that shouty, snappy kind of habit that we have and bring that calm back to the home, being able to communicate and connect with our kids in a different way. So what I have put together and that I'm offering for everyone here is my downloadable parent guide on how to stop the shouting at our kids. It's literally called, I think it's called 3 Ways to Stop Shouting at Your Kids. And I know it sounds like, wow, 3 quick, simple ways. Underneath each of those 3 ways are multiple strategies and advice and things like that, and suggestions. Amazing. So I would love everyone to go on. We'll put the link up, I'm sure, after this. Get it, download it, and use it.
Yes, we will. So what we'll do, guys, is that we will post the link. So on all of our live streams, in our Facebook group, on our Facebook chat. If you've just tuned in, don't worry, Natalie, you can get a replay. So as soon as this broadcast is over, it will be available to rewatch. Just #replay. Let us know where you're listening from. We will drop the link to Stephanie's amazing 3-step guide to stop shouting, which has all of the things that we spoke about, triggers and all of that, recognizing ourselves, understanding. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful to have you with us, Stephanie. Thanks to everyone tuning in. For more events, just follow our Guide and Grow on Facebook, on Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel, Guide and Grow TV. So for everyone that watching, thank you so much. And we'll see you at our next event.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Take care.